A judge just called Google a monopoly, but let it keep the crown. Chrome stays, Apple's default deal survives, and stocks pop. Will token data sharing spark real competition, or is it just optics? Stick around to see what this means for search, AI, and your portfolio.
Thing number one, Gary, Google avoids forced Chrome breakup in antitrust ruling. Again, Chrome being their internet browser. Gary, tell us about this ruling.
All right, Rob. So Google has been in antitrust court for a very long time. The judge in this case, Judge Amit Mehta, was appointed to his position by President Obama. And even though he determined that Google had an illegal monopoly in the search market, he declined to force Google to divest its Chrome browser. And even a bigger surprise is Google is paying Apple, I believe, $20 billion a year to be Apple's default search engine choice. And somehow Judge Mehta, despite affirming Google's monopoly in search services, said, yeah, but you can keep paying Apple $20 billion to maintain your position, which I have no idea how he managed to do that. And the reason this matters, Rob, is because the defaults are important. This is the same issue that got Microsoft in trouble with the antitrust officials back in the 90s. Basically, what happened was Microsoft bundled their search engine and Internet Explorer with every version of Windows. And people like the defaults. They just, oh, this is what I have, and they go with it. It's not that common for people to start searching for their preferred providers and download them. So there's a huge, huge benefit to being the default provider. The ruling by Judge Mehta does impose some minor behavioral remedies. I'm going to read this off here. Google has to cease exclusive distribution agreements, although they can still pay Apple $20 billion a year. They have to share certain search index data with qualified competitors, including emerging AI-backed search platforms such as Perplexity, OpenAI, and DuckDuckGo. Alphabet's stock was up over 8% following the ruling. Apple's stock was up a few percent. And I think part of the big deal on the ruling was a recognition that generative AI is reshaping some of the competitive dynamics. And they're taking a tiny, tiny bit of market share in search. And so that's basically where the judge came out.
Yeah, Gary, I think you nailed it just in terms of the shift of the search market, right? And especially the ruling where you're talking about these minor behavioral remedies in terms of what they need to do or not do with, your ChatGPT's open AIs. This is a lane we play in a ton, right? And clients a lot of times ask us, hey, Google, yes, what about Bing? And actually, Bing does have a very strong market. It's just with a particular demographic, with those that buy PCs, right? Because same thing that you said, instead of it being a default Chrome browser like you have on Apple, now all of a sudden you've got default Bing, and it tends to be an older demographic. So if we're targeting guys like my dad, we might go after Bing because that's what they tend to use. So Gary, it's been crazy too to see the uptick of just traffic that we've sourced as well from these AI, ChatGPT bots, whatever you want to call them, generative AI. We're calling it generative engine optimization, right? To where Google is losing that search volume, right? That search share, all of those things. So I guess, this is obviously a win for Google, I would say for sure. But I got to imagine antitrust experts probably a little bit unhappy with Judge Mehta because, I think there was a little slap on the wrist in terms of these minor behavioral remedies, but more or less they can still do what they do. And you're exactly right, that embedding of Google. And if they can catch up in this AI arms race, which I have no doubt Google would, that puts them in a great position.
Yeah, Russ. So let's actually unravel really simply both sides of this. And there's no question Google executives were celebrating this decision. They were openly thrilled. So the judge is right on the idea that AI is taking some share. And if you think about it, go back a few years or even now, if you have a search, you put it in the search bar and Google will say, okay, here are our sponsored links. And then here are a bunch of other links that you can click on them and go and look for your answer. But now most of the time when I have a question, I just go to one of the AI accelerators. I may go to ChatGPT, or I use Grok on X a lot, and you just ask the question and it returns an answer instead of, yeah, here are a bunch of links, go look for the answer. And obviously, if I'm doing research, then I want to read a whole bunch of stuff. But sometimes I just want a quick answer to something. And, these AI bots are definitely taking some share. That said, Google's market share is still well over 90%, and they have a gigantic war chest of tens of billions of dollars to buy, uh, if not exclusive, certainly default status at places like Apple and others. And so the reason why antitrust experts were livid about the solution is because once the judge makes a determination that Google has an illegal monopoly, he's required to both force them to correct the monopoly and to give up any illegal profits. That didn't happen, right? And yeah, they've got to do some information sharing, but the fact is, he left in place Google's ability to maintain both the illegal monopoly and the profits from it. So, look, I'm hoping that by talking about this, our channel on YouTube doesn't get completely nuked. But this is why Google was thrilled with the decision and why antitrust experts were pretty upset about it. And now you understand both sides of it. I'm curious to know, if you're watching this, what are you using for search right now? Are you using Google? Are you using DuckDuckGo? Are you using a different, Bing? Maybe you're older, like Rob said. Are you using ChatGPT or Grok? And then, separately from this, I'm interested in your opinion on it. What do you think? Did the judge make the right decision? Does Google have a monopoly? Should they have been forced to divest Chrome? And it's something we talked about on a prior version, a prior edition of the Five Things, where, somebody did make a bid. Two companies made a bid for Chrome and they said, hey, we'll buy it. And so I'm sure they were pretty disappointed as well that Google does not have to divest it.
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to hear that as well from our audience. What are you using? How are you using these tools? We're finding that lead that do come from ChatGPT. Like we have phone calls from clients saying, "Hey, found you on ChatGPT." Right? They're so high intent. So like these results that they're getting to, but the difference is that, like you said, Gary, they're getting the information right, or they're reading a lot more throughout what we're calling multi-turn conversations, right? So by the end of it, they're more confident in that result that it does spit out when you finally say, okay, I've determined A, B, C, D, E, whatever your criteria is. Now tell me what my best option is, right? So it's been very, very interesting, fascinating, because then we're weighing like, okay, what does our investment look like in traditional search just from an ROI standpoint if we're getting just higher qualified, ready to close hot leads coming from ChatGPT. So